Hello. The next series of videos you will watch, I will be posting on Thursdays. I'm going to be calling it Throwback Thursday. And these are videos that I had originally posted for instructional purposes on my old YouTube channel. They did decently well, especially for somebody who wasn't maintaining a YouTube channel at the time. I hope you enjoy. Hello, class. In this video, we're going to talk about uh, creating a tessellation on Geogebra. Now, before we do any of that, let's go to Geogebra. So, geogebra.org. Now, I'm used to going to the calculator. I'm just going to go to the home screen. And I'm going to click on geometry. Now, something weird happens when I notice when we get the geometry screen, we're supposed to get a blank screen, not a coordinate grid. But this is no big deal. We can turn this off. So, show grid. I'm going to go no grid and then no axes. So we're good now. And I want to sign in. Now, if you never used GeoGebra before, you can link this directly to your Google account. And if you're doing this on your Chromebook, all the more power to you. You click Google. So sign in the upper left-hand corner, or right-hand corner, pardon me. Google. And I'll have to, oh, no, it signed me directly in. You may have to click on your name, and it may want access to certain things on your account. Click Allow. And then really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and save this now. Save this. I'm going to go Tessellation template. Okay. Because remember, when you turn this in, you're going to want your final tessellation and you're going to want the template. I'll click save. And it'll allow me, if you didn't see what I did there, so if I click save again, I can switch between saving it to GeoGebra and saving it to my Google account. If you don't get this to show up, don't panic. Just save it to GeoGebra. We'll figure it out later. But save it to your account so you have access to it. And let's get started. At this point, if you have chosen this video, you are working on a rotational symmetry. Now, a large part of this I will do with a triangle, but I will be breaking it up periodically to show you, if you chose square or if you chose hexagon, how that would look. But a large part of this video will be going over triangle, as that is what I'm used to teaching. So first thing I did was I clicked more. It starts with just these 6 tools, and I want to click more because I want to create a triangle. Now, I can use that with segments. I can do that with line tools. I can do that with the polygon tool. But what I really want is the regular polygon tool, because I want to start with an equilateral triangle. And so I select that. I click a point A, and then any length B. You know, my usual advice is don't make it too big. Don't make it too small. That doesn't really apply on GeoGebra because you can always zoom in and zoom out as you needed. And number of vertices. It's a triangle, so we want 3 vertices. All right, so we got our triangle. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is deform this figure, okay? Now, I'm going to largely do that with the segment tool, and I'm going to say go A to B. And remember, do not copy my design. Create your own. This is a chance for you to show your creativity. And just to give you an idea of something you could use, I'm going to also use the semicircle tool to see what that's like, okay? And create a random design. I just did this at random. If you think you can create something specific, go for it. But once again, show your creativity. Don't copy my design. Okay. Now, the idea, since we're working with rotation, is to be able to rotate this to either AC or BC. I'm going to rotate it to BC just because I like going in alphabetical order. And right below the polygon tool is a rotate around a point tool. So now, this will require some patience, and I would actually also recommend zooming in if you need to. But you click on the rotate around the point tool. Now, when I click on it, it says select object to rotate and a center point, then enter angle. So I'm going to rotate this segment, and I'm going to rotate it around this point. Now, we have to think, what's the interior angle of an equilateral triangle? Well, all angles add up to 180. There's 3 of them in an equilateral triangle, so each angle is 60. So I'm going to type in 60. Now, I wanted to go this way. That is clockwise. Oh, 60, not 30, pardon me. And really quickly, I'm going to take a second to memorize this screen, because this is the exact screen that I need to do for all remaining parts, okay? I need it all to be 60 degrees and I need it all to be clockwise. If you did counterclockwise, you'd be going over to AC. And not that there's anything wrong with that. You just need to remember that you would always, after that, need to do counterclockwise. All right. And then we're going to repeat this process. And I don't need to click the tool again. Go 60 degrees clockwise. Object point, 60 degrees clockwise. Now, I'm going to really quickly show you what happens if you make a mistake and you don't click on what you're supposed to. So I want to click this line, but let's say I accidentally click here. What's going to happen is it's going to create a point. Now, what I can do really quickly is, don't panic. I'm going to click off onto another tool. I'm going to go to the move. I'm going to click on that point that I created and just delete it just so it's not a problem anymore. And then I'm going to go to the rotate around a point tool and continue. So now I make sure I get my object, my point, 60 degrees clockwise, and then my semicircle, point 60 degrees clockwise. Now, I will urge you right now, I probably should have urged it earlier in the video, be careful about not using too many semicircles or arcs. If you want to add curves, by all means do it. But you may not get the results you're looking for because, and I'll show you in a second, but using curves can be a bit of a pain. Okay, so this I really wanted to show you really quickly. If you're doing rotation and you're doing square, here's how you would do this. Now, when I use my regular polygon tool, same way as the triangle, click 2 points, set the length. Again, size doesn't really matter because you can zoom in and out as needed. And this time, square means 4 vertices. Okay, now that I've created my deformation, I'm going to go ahead and rotate. I'm going to go ahead and rotate around B again. Now, this time, instead of being 60 degrees, the interior angle of a square is 90 degrees. So I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. Oh, click off, rotate, and then we will rotate around the point. As with triangle, make sure we memorize these settings because these are the settings we will do throughout. Okay, so there's my first deformation. You saw a couple times there was, I forgot to change from counterclockwise to clockwise. So all I did was undo and then redo it. You can also see a point where I moved the label. You can move these labels around. Just make sure your move tool is selected. And so they don't need to be in your way. Okay. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's deform this side. Now I did this 90 degrees clockwise. I'm going to want to do this 90 degrees clockwise. So let's go ahead and deform that really quickly. All right, so for this, I want to show you really quickly what a hexagon would look like. So start same as triangle, same as square, except 6 vertices this time. And we can cancel that. And let me delete those really quickly. All right, now this hexagon gets a little weird because we got to create 3 rotations this time. So I'm going to keep it simple at this point. This is a long enough video already. Again, if you're doing triangle or if you're doing square, you can fast forward through this part. But really quickly, and I'll just rotate now. The interior angle of a hexagon is 720 degrees. Really quickly, The formula n minus 2 times 180 will help us. There are 6 sides, so that's 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 times 180 is 720. And then because it's regular, 720 divided by 6 is 120. So when I do my rotation of my bits, I'm going to do clockwise like I always have. So 120 degrees. Actually, I'm going to do counterclockwise this time. Just let's see what's different. Oh, no. I want to do clockwise. Pardon me. If I did around point A, yeah, I'll do around point A. So it's 120 degrees. There we go. But right now the question becomes, what do I do with this side? Because this is just a blank side. Well, if you want to do something else with it, and this is purely optional, this part right here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a midpoint if I can find that tool. There's a midpoint tool somewhere. Here we go, midpoint. I'm going to click on this segment. It's going to plot the midpoint for me. Now, I'm going to create a design. I'm just going to use segments for this one. And I'm not going to go too heavy on it. Just 3 segments should do. I'm going to rotate it around this side. So I'm going to use my rotate tool again. Now this time, because I'm rotating it all the way around, I want to do a 180-degree rotation, and I want H to be my center. Now, remember, 180-degree rotation doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise. So I'll just keep it as counterclockwise. And see how these are overlapping? I don't want that. So I can always fix that. I'm going to go back to my move tool. Anytime you plan on not using a tool you're selecting, go back to your move tool. There we go. Let's move that around. Just so I can now start from scratch. And you saw, see now, segment. It's happening again. Okay. Segment, point. When I changed it and its rotation changed with it. So, and now finally, and remember, this part is purely optional. If you do not want to do this, you may fast forward through the remainder. But I will be operating from now on with this in my design, so you can see what I did with it. All right, so I've got my deformation. Now the idea is to create an outline, because I want to be able to rotate this easily. I'm going to have to tile this around the plane. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to use the polygon tool, and I'm going to create a polygon around this. Now, it doesn't matter which point you start at, and it doesn't matter which direction you go. So I'm going to start up here at A1. Now, again, doesn't matter which point you start at, and I'm going to go counterclockwise. But you have to remember 2 things. One, you have to hit consecutive points. If you don't hit consecutive points, you're going to have to start over. If you once you start in a certain direction, you have to keep going in that direction. And that kind of fits with the first point. So I'm just going to keep connecting point after point. And what it's doing is it's creating a polygon with all my deformations. Now, we've come to the part where, nuts. Well, we got to the part where we have to trace over the curve. Now, there is no way to trace over curve. You have to remember, polygon is a shape in which it's enclosed. It's got to have straight sides, so no curves. So the fact that I have to trace over a curve with a non-curved tool, I'm going to show you how that works, but for some reason, it exited out on me. I'm actually going to skip over it. Well, no, I'll do H. Better safe than sorry. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go little by little. As little distance as possible will give me the nicest looking curve I can possibly generate. All right, now I have to go around. But slow and steady wins the race. Be careful with this part. Now I have to end back where I started. That'll enclose the figure. All right. Now, really quickly, I want to do some cleanup. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Select Objects tool, which is closer to the top. And I'm just going to click somewhere in the upper left-hand corner, click and drag. And I'm going to select everything. And I'm going to go to these three dots. I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to click show object, which is going to hide everything. Click it once. It may take a second for it to register. Now, why did I do that? It's because I want to hide the points and tools. You've got to remember in my instructions, complete and correct means no points, no labels, no segments. Well, I can go through and hide those individually, or I can hide everything at once. And now check this out. On this algebra tool is everything I've created, every segment, every point, every polygon. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll to the way bottom, and I'm going to search for, it'll be named polygon something. Here we go, polygon 2. If I click on that, and this dot will show everything. Now it does show the segments, but we can worry about that later. And then my point of rotation was B, and it was H, so I'm going to find H and show those. The reason why I want to show those is because I'm going to use those as points of rotation. All right, now here's an instance where I don't have point D in my list. So if I don't have that, I got to remember where D was. It was right here, and it'll give it a new name, but that's okay. I do want those points of rotation, though. All right, so I've got my template. All right, now I can't stress this enough. At this point, you're going to begin rotation. You're going to begin your final template. So whether you're doing triangle, whether you're doing square, whether you're doing hexagon in this part of the video, we need to go and we need to make a save. So a tessellation template, rotation, triangle, Mr. Duffy. Okay. That's our final copy of a tessellation. That's the template as you were. If you were doing this on paper, you would be handing in the paper template. Now we're going to resave this now. Right now, right after you save it as the template, we're going to resave this as final tessellation. And the reason why you need to do it now is because if you accidentally save over the template in the future, then you got to undo that and do it all over again. And click save. And now you're good to move on to the next steps of the video. Okay, so let's get to rotating this thing. Here is why we use the polygon tool instead of just segment tools. I want to rotate this entire figure. If I use the polygon tool, I can click on the figure itself and then B. And now I got to remember my specs, so to speak, 60 degrees, and it was clockwise. I've got a little rotation. Now, rule is no gaps, no overlaps. So you got to take the curves with a grain of salt. I'm not going to be looking to take off for stuff like this, but if you don't like the way it looks, don't do the curves, okay? I know at this point you may have already used them, and that's fine, but it's just an added feature if you want to use it. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this 6 times because there are 6 60-degree measures. Now, the instructions say I need to do it at least 15 times. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something. Okay, when I select my rotate around a point tool, I can click off. If I click and drag, like I did to hide, I can select all objects, and then I can click a new point of rotation. And this is where those midpoints come in. So I am going to do, now that was 180 degrees. And clockwise, counterclockwise, it didn't matter. 180 degrees is 180 degrees in a rotation. And it may take a second. That's important. So go get my move tool, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now, I've just created 12 copies. And I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to actually do this. Just do one figure. Oh, I probably need my rotation tool. One figure, 180 degrees. There we go. And now I can do this. That's 13 copies so far. 14. And now here's my 15. Now here's why I say at least 15. I don't like the way this looks, so I'm going to go ahead and do a full rotation of this. And you can do the same. Because there is no way to fill in infinite tiling of the plane, we're going to assume that this would infinitely tile the plane and make it look good at the end. So there's that. And here's my final copy. So that's a total 18. That's good. There we go. And then when now I can rotate my plane, and it was 90 degrees clockwise. There's one. I can do around N as well, 90 degrees clockwise. And there we go. We can continue on as needed. If you do one full rotation of a hexagon, you only get 3 copies. So make sure you're doing a lot of copying. So no points, no segments. Let's do this again. So select objects, select everything, settings, and we're going to hide everything. Again, may take a second because we're hiding so much stuff. We'll take a second. Don't keep clicking because then you're going to really send it into a loop. Now, this does mean I have to go through my list here and find my 18 shapes. I do figure that is easier than trying to hide all the segments individually. But you do you. Now, if you just want to hide the segments and points individually, you can go through and either click on them in the picture and hide them the same way I showed you to do all the objects, or you can click on these circles. So there I just unhid D2. So really quickly, I'm just going to go ahead and find all my objects. And remember, I'm looking for 18 copies. Okay, there we go. There's all 18 of my copies. Again, as you unhide the polygons, it's also going to unhide the segments. I'm going to show you how to take care of that right now. So we're going to go back to Tools. We're going to select Objects, and we're going to select All. I'm going to go back to my settings. Now, instead of clicking Show Object again, because that's going to just send me back to where I came from, I'm going to click Style. And in Style, there's line thickness and line opacity. And I'm just going to scale those all the way down to 0. And you can see, I'll click out of this. It got rid of it. Now, there's these little instances where you can see those gaps. That's where the curves came. Again, I'm going to be turning a blind eye to that. If you used curves, just do the best you can. The gaps shouldn't be glaring, but we can honestly look at that as part of the tessellation. That's fine. All right, I wanted to show you what my final square tessellation looked like before I colored it. This is it all cleaned up, so I just need to color it now. Now, notice with square, I do say at least 15 copies once again, but with square, if you leave out one, it kind of looks weird. So I did 16. You'll find that with square, whether you're doing translation or rotation, 16 is best with square. And here is the hexagon right before I color it. So now we've come to the coloring stage. Now this can be a little finicky sometimes, so bear with me as we do this. I'm going to make sure I have my move tool selected. I'm going to select one object and I'm going to go to settings. And I'm going to go to color. Make sure, you can always check to make sure you have a polygon selected. The color is up to you. Just remember 2 colors at least, and bordering colors cannot be the same. So I'll go with red on this one. And I like to really crank it all the way up. So I'm going to crank the opacity all the way up to 100 so that it's thick. And then, so what I mean by bordering colors cannot be the same. So this one right here cannot be red. So I'll make that dark blue. And there we go. Oh, and this may happen on occasion. Just click cancel anytime that happens. So click on the new shape. I'll go with green this time. And that's how you color. Just go through, make it whatever you want. At the end, some final editing tools that I will show you, but I will not be using myself. If I scroll to the bottom, click more. There's this text thing you can add. There's a pen tool you can use to add some little designs if you so choose. Design at this point is up to you. Be creative. Do what you feel is best. And there we go. Now, I actually have not been doing my due diligence on saving this copy, so really quickly, tessellation, final copy, rotation, hexagon. And export image and download. And I'm done with this one. Here is my final. I'm trying to get it positioned right, but I went for a gold and red theme on this one. And once you're done, make sure you save. Again, you got your template from before, but now we're saving it as a final copy. Save. And then we export as image and we download. All right, so let's go here first. And it is saved in my Google Drive, so this is something you can attach to your Google Drive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export image to do this, and I'm going to download, and that'll download it, and you can upload it as a picture. Thanks for watching.